host of this panel, Alex Nichiporchik, CEO of tinyBuild. Please applause.
Good morning, everyone. So the reason we host this panel in the morning on day 2 is because we want the really dedicated people. Because yesterday's party was awesome. So applaud yourselves for coming. Поаплодируем себе за то, что мы проснулись. Можно нам, пожалуйста, сделать...
Can you give us a picture on the screen so we can see everything in here and there? Both of them.
Host this only with Russian-speaking developers, and this is the first time we're hosting it with a panel of international speakers. So right now I just have like the games that we have on stage here for a point of reference. So we have some, very true indie games, like Firewatch. We have, Nuclear Throne, This War of Mine. A shitty game called No Time to Explain, and Cube and Talos Was Alone. So let me introduce the panelists. So my name is Alex Nichiporchik from tinyBuild. Then we have Chris Remo from Campo Santo. Please, round of applause. We have Dan Rocha from Taxa Games. We have Rami Ismail from Vlambeer. And we have, I'm sorry if I don't pronounce this, Grzegorz? Yes, Grzegorz Mazur from Monarch. And we have Mike Bithell from Bithell Games. So, I'm just gonna kick it off right now. Guys, can you check if your microphones are working?
Hello?
Okay, awesome. So let's just start off like, hi, I want to make video games. Where do I start?
Oh God.
For context, in this region of the world, technical education is really, really good, right? So like everyone knows how to develop software. Right, but what if I'm a good C++ coder or C# coder, or I have the technical skills. I'm here. You guys have all made games before. Where do I start? Like literally, what do I do right now?
You make a video game.
Yeah, you make Pong.
Yeah, you make something small, something simple, and then you build from there. You build stuff and you know that it's going to be awful, because it always is. The first 10 games, if you're lucky, will be awful. Number 10 might be pretty good. Number 10 might have some really cool ideas.
Number 10 is going to suck still.
Do you think that sucks?
Yeah,
I think that's an okay game.
Awful.
That's like a game that your mum would be impressed by.
Yeah,
my mum would be impressed by. My mum's
maybe
very
your
easy
game
to
10
impress.
was good.
Say again? What did you say?
Maybe your game 10 was good. I started when I was 6. I didn't make a good game until I was 21 or something.
All right, Rami, tell us, what was your very first game that you ever made?
Oh God. I was 6 years old and we had this old MS-DOS computer, and on it was a game called Gorillas. Gorillas.bas. Yeah, Gorillas.bas, exactly. And the only way you could run the game was you would load the code and then look at the code and then run the game. But like 6-year-old me didn't speak English, so I had no idea what the text on the screen was. So I scrolled through it and I saw that there was all the text of the main menu was just in the code. So I removed all that text and changed it into my name. And the next time I ran the game, instead of the main menu, it said Rami. And I was like, holy sh! Like, if I change words in the words, then the game changes? And then I just never stopped changing words. My first text adventure I made like a week later, and I didn't know how to do any nested commands, so it was like, you stand in an open space, you can go east and you can go west. And if you go east, you fall into a pit and die. If you go west, you win. And I was very proud of it, and I showed my parents, and I think that's one of the reasons they never thought game design was an actual career, because I was very proud of that. They were not really. So then I did that for like 14 years, and then I made a good game. It was great.
Right, so within that frame of context, right? So like if I have technical skills, right? Obviously you had technical skills when you were 6. So the reason I'm a producer is because I don't know how to do anything. So I just bring everyone coffee and then claim success, right? But if you're a software developer, how do you like figure out, how do you start working with an artist? Right, because just for reference, here it's a technically driven industry, right? So having good artists, like you found Jan Willem, right? You found JW, and that's how you guys met, right?
So are you asking like artists for like visual art or artists in
just
terms
like
of
design or
design?
art.
Okay, so actually a good example is my girlfriend. Adriel Wallach, she's the organizer of Train Jam, and she's a phenomenal programmer. Before we met, she used to work at NASA, and she used to code weather satellites, like things that went to space.
That's not so hard. It's pretty
You made a
hard.
game about rectangles, dude. Like, I don't know. So she made stuff that went to space, and then from space it analyzes cloud patterns to check for tornadoes. That's like the level of technical engineering she did. And then she got bored and decided to do video games. But she's a programmer first. She wasn't a designer. She'd never designed anything, and she didn't know how to do that. So I set her a challenge and said, you have to make a game every week. From start to finish, you have to be done. You have to start on Monday. You have to be done by Sunday. Then on Sunday, I want you to release the game online on a public blog. I want you to write a post that says, this is what I liked, this is what I didn't like, this is what I learned, and this is what, you know, I could do better in the future.
I think the problem is, though, I mean, in Adriel's case, I mocked, she's a brilliant coder and a very good designer, right? The challenge I think a lot of people have is maybe they're amazing on the technical side, but they really, you know, are not designers, or they're not excited about it.
No, because
You can
Adriel
be that.
sucked at design.
Yeah.
That's why I set the challenge. It's
Yeah, but
because
then
she had never designed anything.
I'm trying to work my way back to the question that was asked.
Yeah, so how do you turn into a good designer? It's
I
literally
think
design
you
stuff.
can also find a great designer to work with. I don't think you have to. One of the great things about indie development is you don't have to do everything yourself. You can find people who are good at the things that you aren't good at or not interested in.
So while I do agree with that point in general, like, being capable of communicating within a certain space in games is important. If you're purely technical and you're in a small team of like 4 to 6 people, 3 to 6 people even, being able to at least understand the basics of design and having gone through the process and having seen how like an idea turns into a prototype, turns into a final product, turns into like something that you've released, that's important to go through.
Trying to be okay at everyone's job and then finding people who are excellent at those individual jobs.
Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense.
I like how I like finding designers. I don't know, like finding designers, game jams. I check at game jams. I just
honestly,
check
like,
Vlambeer.
in the indie space, we don't seem to have many game designers who are coming from indie and focus on design. Most of them seem to be coming from more established studios where design was a discipline that you could do independently. You guys have designers, don't you, that are not doing the technical side in the art?
Our team is very multidisciplinary. So we don't really, at Campo Santo, we don't really have, that's not true. We have very few people who only do one thing. So I'm a designer, but I'm also a music composer, and I do all of our web development, and I'm on the story team. So in indie development, generally, it is, as you guys say, it is important to be a generalist and to know something about all the jobs, but to be really valuable, it's also good to excel at something. And if you're a technical person, that's a really good thing to excel at, because there's always demand for good coders, good software engineers. But yeah, I think that it's often I think game design is something that everyone thinks they can do, because there's no way to prove that one way or the other until you make a game and it's good or bad.
Well, Chris, so I got a question for you. Like, arguably, you have released the biggest game on this panel in the past ever, right? I don't think anyone's going to argue that. So
I don't know.
You're putting it on the spot here. But how did you start?
How did I start personally?
In the industry.
Me?
Yeah.
My story is not very useful to anybody, because I went to college and I got a music degree because I wanted to be in a rock band, and that failed. So I mean, it failed as a job, and so
They ended up in games?
I ended up in games on accident. I had no intention of going into games. It never occurred to me to go into video game development. I ended up making a video game website with some friends just for fun, and that ended up turning into a job as a game journalist full time. And then I ended up working at Gama Sutra, which is a game development website. It's a site about game design and game development. And I ended up learning a lot about game development. Most of my friends were game developers, and I ended up I just ended up in games. It was.
Yeah, it just happened organically.
It just
I
happened.
was also a game
Yeah.
journalist before.
Oh, okay.
Start.
Cool.
Right. So just for for everyone's frame, right? You guys, you were fortunate to have an A team of 10 people. You got funding, and then you developed Firewatch.
Yep.
Rami's story is a little bit different. Was dropping out of college and doing all that. We all know your story. Not many people know Mike's story. Mike, can you briefly, like you mentioned in yesterday's presentation, but how did you get into games?
So failed rock star, failed actor.
Fellow journalist.
That's like the sad couch over
This is
there.
the sad couch. We're gonna come back one day. We're gonna do a rock opera. Two of us. Change the world. So I was a child actor, and then in my spare time, I wasn't a very good one.
Which movies?
Nothing you've seen. Independent movies, theatre. When I say independent movies, it sounds like it's dodgy, but no, theatre, like lots of like acting. But I wasn't very good at it. That's true. Child actors are universally terrible. And yeah, in my spare time, I messed around with computers, and it was kind of, my parents encouraged it as like the backup option. And then I played Shenmue as a kid, and I have this very vivid memory of sitting playing Shenmue when my agent called me with a play I'd been in London, was going to tour Europe, and they wanted me to drop out of school to go and do this show. And I really liked Shenmue. So I was like, this is more interesting. This is the thing that people are going to really care about in 10 years, not theatre. I don't know if that was necessarily true as a 16-year-old, but I felt it was. So I ended up going and teaching picking up courses that I felt were relevant. I did the degree in computer game design, which was very early on. No one was doing those. And then I worked in traditional game dev for a few years. Worked on Nintendo Wii kind of shovelware games, and.
Can you switch out your mic?
Oh, hello. Oh, this one's got a bit more bass.
I'd hope.
Hello.
I hope they
Hi,
have
I'm
muted
Mike.
that one.
Say again.
I hope they have muted that one.
That would have been funny. Just to be cruel. And then, I worked on a bunch of different games for different platforms. Then I worked on Facebook games, because everyone thought Facebook was going to be the future. That lasted about 2 years. And then, in my spare time, made Thomas Was Alone as a hobby project, and it kind of got big. And I had to quit my job because it was kind of weird.
At least, thank God, you waited until the game hit before you quit your job.
Rami. I'm a coward.
Thank God.
I wasn't. So I had friends who were quitting their day job to go and be independent developers, and without any funding, with just kind of some money in their bank account or whatever. And that scared me. I didn't want to do
so
that.
you basically work a full-time job at the game studio, and then you ventured into being indie.
Yeah, I did it on my spare time, and it turned out well.
All right. So in the interest of time, Dan, I really want to know where you came from, how you got indie.
Yeah, so similar to Chris, actually, a lot of my friends were going, the long hair and everything.
Were you
So we
a
can get a show
musician?
going. Let's do this.
What was that?
Were you a musician?
Yeah, I was in a band,
Really?
we played gigs and stuff.
So wait,
To show you some
Grzegorz
pictures.
is also a musician.
Wait, what is happening?
Wait, what do you play?
Guitar and throat.
Okay, and
Guitar.
guitar. What do you play? Damn. Oh,
So
you
wait,
do drums.
basically
Okay.
every failed
You can sing.
guitarist becomes a game developer.
I can do the cymbals, and we'll do the whole thing.
Okay, so
Later
to be
tonight,
a successful indie, you learn to play guitar, right?
That's the key. So all my friends were sort of studying music, and I thought the music industry is going to be very hard to break into. So, not purely because of that, but I had a love for games all the time, and I studied 3D modeling and stuff in college, and then I decided to do game design in Newport University in South Wales. And then we made a game called Cube, like a short 5 to 10 minute demo in university, and a few lecturers and even Mike came along.
All right, so you had a student project in university, and then you just went along with it and made that into a game.
Exactly, yeah.
right,
Went to
so-
a few conferences and then got some funding.
So from a student game. All right, let's see what Grzegorz says.
So failed guitarist.
Back in the day, I wanted to be a rock star. Yeah, but it sucked, so it was too hard. So I started doing games really late because I started doing it at studies, after studies maybe, during studies. I always wanted to make games, but I didn't know how to do it. So I went for studies just to learn how to program stuff and be a software developer. And then I met some people who were also who wanted to start doing games, and we started to do something together. So at the very beginning, it was really bad things, of course. And the thing that worked really good for me was cloning the games. So we were just taking small games and trying to rewrite it by ourselves, and then change something. So it's like a incremental work on someone's other game. So it was a good approach, because other friends, well, I had an adventure also with this. Were trying to do big MMO RPG games. So they were starting with 2 guys doing the RPG MMO, and after 3 years they failed. So the very good thing is there's just to take a small project and finish it. So it's a lot better experience than just starting something big and never finish. So I did some clones of the games, then I joined one team and we failed on a game, then I joined 11-bit Studios and we worked on some anomaly games, the small mobile games, and then we did this War of Mine. So actually my story was just learning from the better guys than me, so more experienced. And then I actually left them and started my own studio. I don't know if we will survive, but it's a good adventure.
That's kind of interesting, because on this panel, so we have 2 failed journalists, right? At least 2 failed rock stars. And people who have developed, like Rami and Dan, you started in college.
Well, I started by leaving college, but
Well,
sure.
yeah, but still, you were, technically in
We're the
college.
university kids. You're the kids who dropped
Yeah, it's like I don't want to learn how to make video games. I want to make video games. No, it's the problem.
Right, so it seems like there is no formula here, right? It just happens.
It's
right?
almost like it's a sequence of luck and dumb chance.
Well, you make your own luck, right? Like, if you hadn't been passionate about making games, you wouldn't pursue the opportunities that you were presented with, right?
There's actually, so my story is not very useful to anybody, I don't think, but there is one really useful thing that I benefited from that was not intentional at the time, but I now realize was the single most important thing, and it was developing strong creative relationships early. So almost everybody that I work with now, well, not almost everybody, but I would say about half the people on the Campo Santo team are people I have known for years and years and years and years, and we never worked together officially. We never worked together at a full-time job before, but we knew each other, and we had this understanding that this is someone I can work with. This is someone whose creative sensibility I respect. Like, I am not an amazing game developer. I'm not, like, I know that of the people on this stage, I'm probably, like, extremely unimpressive as an individual game developer. But the thing that was an advantage for me was that I had these strong relationships with the other people I was working with, and we all understood what each other's strengths were. And so I think I bring much, much, much more to the project that I'm on because of the specific combination of people than I would if I were just hired to work for some arbitrary big studio that I have no existing relationship to. I do think I was an effective member of our team, but a big part of that is because I was building on a decade of relationships.
Yeah.
You have a certain level of trust and respect.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think the overarching point there is community, though, right? Like, it's being part of this creative community,
Definitely.
whether it's small or large. But
Yep.
like, those communities, like, I used to be part of like game creation forums, and like, everybody there was kind of shit, right? Like, nobody there was particularly good at what they did, and I wasn't good at what I did. Like, we didn't know what we were doing, but we were always pushing each other. And like, some of those people actually turned out to be really good at their job, and I still run into them in the industry nowadays.
Yeah.
And I think finding like-minded people, finding people that will push you, finding people that are better than you, that are smarter than you, that are doing more interesting work than you, and like talking to them, and like being in like those creative environments, that helps a lot.
For sure.
I remember I give students the same advice every year, which is like, go to a games event, and like, you're all here, so I don't have to tell you that. But like, if you're like a student, you start a student, you go to a major event, you come back like 50% more, like 50% closer to a professional, right? Because you've been in this environment with people that are doing it for real instead of doing it for school. Yeah, community, definitely.
Well, I think the main takeaway we want to take away here is it's all about people, right? Like, it's all about the people that you work
like
with.
95% of this is surrounding yourself with people who are better than you. right? Like, I assume somewhere there is like the perfect game developer, and they are constantly hounded by idiots like us. Like, because I always want to be the most stupid person on any team I'm on. And if you can try and always chase that, you know, if you're in your course at uni and like you think you're kind of the best person in your class, get out. You know, get out to events and find the better people and be surrounded. Like, there is nothing to be gained. Time and again, I see this with students and professionals. Like, smugness is what kills creativity and kills our ability to make stuff.
Kills communication.
But communication, yeah, finding those people who are better than you, finding those people who will push you and that you're going to be embarrassed by how awful you are compared to them, that works for me.
Don't think that you're the best in the world, right?
Not even in the room generally. Just don't think you're the best. Like,
If you do think that, leave.
get another room.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say one thing that was, so I worked in large-scale video game development for a few years, you know, much larger studios than where I am now. And I would say one of the things that was most frustrating to me about it, that I really did not like, was when people develop an attitude that they are amazing and no one can criticize them, and if they criticize them, it's because they hate video game developers and they want them to fail. No, you have to learn to accept criticism. You have to learn to know that it's okay if not every single person likes the thing you do, and there's probably something you can learn from that, and you can probably get better. It's really, really bad to get into this mentality that, like, just because you've worked hard to learn things, and that's important, you should work hard to learn things, but just because you've worked hard does not mean you cannot still be criticized, and that's so important to internalize.
Yeah, I have like personal feedback for all of you in this room. Your previous game could have been better. Yeah. It's personal feedback for all of you. Just make a better game next time.
I think there is an advice to be had here, because I've seen this. Like, I was walking around the showcase, and whenever someone comes up and just says, you know, oh, you know, this part of your game sucks, the developer gets very defensive. And it's a cultural thing here. So like, no, it's going to be this, this, and this. That's why we do the game lynch, right? We just go like, yeah, that's not gonna fly. But point is, like, if people are giving you feedback, take that feedback in. Don't try to like interrupt them and go, no, this will be that and that. No, the product is as it is. Take the feedback in, write it down, and then elaborate on that. Don't try to, you know, like, convince.
To be clear, it might be wrong. Like, that's the thing, is with feedback, like, listen to everything, never interrupt. But you might get home and think, actually, no, this isn't the game I want to make. I want to do it this way. So I don't think you're saying, like, do everything everyone tells you, but listen to it, take it all in.
Yeah, listen to feedback. Like, getting feedback and then acting on it, those are two different things, right? But don't try to convince people that you're the best.
Well, yeah, but I think the thing in general is, like, it's very easy to get really close to the thing you're making. Like, you care about the game, right? So if somebody says, like, well, this is shit, like, the first thing you're going to go is, well, you can go, like...
Well, if anyone actually walks up to you and says, this is shit, you don't need to listen to that person's feedback.
Sure, but, like, if somebody comes up and gives you feedback, and it's negative feedback, and you care about the game, like, it's very easy to become defensive. And it actually took me, like, 4 or 5 years before I got over that impulse to just be like, no, but this is, like, we're working on that. It's like, why would you interrupt somebody who's telling you, like, here's, like, a few things you could do, right? And, like, the trick I learned with feedback is to never listen to solutions people offer. Always listen to the problems. So if they say, like, I feel this boss fight, like, is a bit too hard, maybe I should have a better weapon. Maybe I should have a better weapon, I just dispose of that. Like, I don't even make a mental note. But what I do remember is the boss fight feels too hard.
You're the designer, so it's your job to come up with a solution.
Yeah, that's not their job.
Yeah.
Like, if the people giving you feedback were better at game design, you should probably hire them and stop being game designers.
If you went to a doctor with a cold and they gave you a tissue, right? Like, you don't solve the symptom, you solve the underlying reason. Yeah.
All right, so I think we got the basics here, right? You know, this is the obvious elephant in the room question, like, where do I start and all of that, where we came from. So now I want to talk about games. Not about our games. I want to talk about the games that caught you off guard. You know, every now and then you log into Steam and you go, holy shit, why is this, like, in the top 10? So just for an example that caught me completely off guard, like The Culling. I was like, holy hell, this game is fantastic. Just a battle royale, no survival bullshit, you know, very minimal crafting, and it's like in the Steam top charts. And, you know, it's still doing really well, but do reviews really matter for it? Because it's still in the top charts, the reviews are not that great, And I've been seeing a lot of people just obsess over, like the racing and, like, hey, it got over 90% and now we're going to do well. Like, we got at least 3 games in the portfolio that are over 90%, but none of them are as successful as some of the games that are like 75. So the 2 questions I want to discuss here are, 1, do you have a game that in recent memory has like completely caught you off guard? Why? And the second one on the reviews of that game. So like when you log into Steam and you go, you scroll down, now they have the most recent reviews. Like let's just elaborate on that a little bit.
So I'll talk a little bit about the reviews. I think, honestly, it becomes a case of every developer and every individual developing games on a team has their own reason for being there, has their own objective. There are game developers who care more about the reviews and want to make something that is critically acclaimed. And I'm talking about kind of website reviews and kind of the established kind of game journalism that they want to do well in that area. There are people who care about user reviews and that's their focus. And there are people who care about just selling lots of games. And then there are people who care about selling lots of games versus making money from games. And basically, I don't think there's any one metric for success that is universally applicable. It's all about the individual. It's what do you want, and being honest with yourself about what is the thing that you actually
Mike,
want.
so what was the one game in the last year that you never thought would sell really well?
I'm not gonna. I don't want to answer because I think that I don't like there's like a backhanded insult in that, and I can't think of a game that I want to say I don't think that game deserved its
Say
success.
Nuclear Throne. You're done.
Well, Nuclear Throne sucks. Everyone knows that, obviously.
Well, there's just like often these like breakout hits, right? That just all of a sudden. I know that like you guys don't want to say like which games, huh?
Well, I mean, there's one for me, and I don't. So Devil Daggers, that was a game that, again, like Mike said, it's weird saying this because it sounds as though I'm saying like, why would that be successful? I totally understand why that game is successful, but if you had given me the pitch for that game, like,
exactly.
It's a
That's
game
what I mean.
where everyone will die at it instantly, and you're all terrible, and it looks like Doom from 1993, and all you do is sit in a little circle and shoot things. Like, okay, that might be fun for a few minutes, but like that doesn't sound like an entire game. No, hell no, that game's amazing. Like that game's fucking incredible.
I would have thrown all the money at that.
Yeah.
If somebody came to me with that
well,
pitch,
that's
I'd
because
be
that's
like,
your,
yep, go
because
for
you
it.
would know how to. That's like you guys know
that's
how
totally
to do
what
that.
we do.
Yeah, but it's just that game does not look like any other game that has come out. It does not look or play like anything else that's come out recently, and that's fucking crazy. Like that is so rare to see something that is so outside the norm, and I was really impressed by it.
Yeah, Devil Daggers is a really good one. The one that made it for me is like, well, we're just gonna keep on moving forward on the subject of highly complex games. So for me, Factorio was like, holy crap. And when I saw it before it launched, I was like, well, there is no way people are gonna, like, get really deep into it. And then you look at the screenshots in the community hub, you go, holy hell. And people are still playing. Like, I took the screenshot like 10 minutes ago. Like, right now, there's 4,500 people playing it.
But like, isn't it, like, for all of these games, like, for basically every game ever, like, every game ever should not work, right? Like, you kind of look at games and you look at them and you're like, this war of mine should have never worked, right? Like, that's a ridiculous game to make. When you think about it, you're gonna make like a slow, atmospheric, like, nasty, depressing game about like war.
The game is not fun.
Yeah, it's like the most depressing
yay,
thing
do
to
I
play
take the
after
food?
the ending of Firewatch. And then Cube is like, you guys basically made like Portal, but then with cubes and like extracting things from a wall, and it's like, why would that work? And then he made a game about rectangles with like a narrator. Like, there's just some guy talking about this jumping rectangle, and it's like, yeah, no, that'll sell. And then he made a game about walking in a forest, which should not sell. You made a, like, I don't even know where to start about
I made
your
a
stuff.
lot of shitty games.
I have no, and then I made a game about a fish with a guitar at a campfire. Like, none of those games should work, but like, they do.
Yeah, but sometimes they do. And like, the point is, like, we made some weird shit here, right? But somehow we were able to have a certain level of success. So what I want to achieve here is for us to share some knowledge, right? To, so that someone in this hall making weird ass shit, that it might just work.
So here's the thing. The weird ass shit that all of us made is particularly us, right? The weirdest shit that we made is stuff that we would make. Like, Mike is very much somebody who would hire a British narrator to talk over rectangles, right? That is you, because you have your theater background, you have your background in like storytelling and narration.
The word pretentious.
Well, pretentious. Sorry, that was the word. Sorry, I'm not British. But like the games we made are very us, and I think the personas that we are also very us. Like you're like the most you person that I've ever come across, but like you're also very you. It's very weird to say, but like Mike is very Mike, right? And you're very Chris, and I'm very Rami.
I hate people, so I made a game where everyone is terrible.
Yeah, like no human relationship in your game succeeds, which when you think about it is sad, but
Yeah,
also.
that's because that's life.
We were talking about
But, like, here's
Firewatch.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, I think what sets these games apart is that they dare to have an identity, right? Like, Factorio is a very interesting one because the only reason that game works is because it makes no compromise in this super complex but very well communicated factory building. Because that's a complicated game. It's really fun if you like that kind of thing. So that game is just exactly that. It's not trying to be anything else. It's not trying to pretend to be anything else.
It's not trying to be Nuclear Throne.
Yeah, no, it's Factorio. Like that's what it is. Firewatch, and Thomas was alone, and this War of Mine, this War, Nuclear Throne, Cube is Cube. Like they're them. They're that game. And I think as soon as your game becomes that, like a thing that is just a mix of other things, then it doesn't have an identity and it doesn't stand a chance. Like even if you get a strong identity, I don't think you technically stand much of a chance. But you stand a much better chance, right?
In the industry, that's not happening, right? We've seen Uncharted that just take like 5 different games and like merge them together in a way, but that's AAA.
Well, they can do it because they can put the marketing behind it. That they can convince you that this game is. And to be fair, Uncharted is amazing. But the I think the key thing here to remember as well is, yes, you know, we have a sampling here of people who've made games that have been successful and very specific and personal. But you could still make a game that was very personal and still it goes nowhere, right? Like it's a really weird. It's whenever I'm on a panel or doing a talk, an event, this is always a very strange thing because we are the lucky ones basically in this scenario. And I always worry about finding any kind of correlation because for every one of us, there's 20 people who aren't on stage talking about this stuff.
So yes, but on the other side, I find it hard to believe that we've always like been the lucky ones because I'm pretty sure if you go through our history, we've made a lot of games that failed as well, right? Sure. Like I've made a lot of shit. Like I don't even want to talk about some of it, but like I've done commercial projects that failed. Before Vlambeer, I had another company that failed that a lot of people just never knew, but like we've all gone through failure a number of times.
And I think that's one of the things that people don't talk about so much with indie is one of the big criteria for success is longevity. It's just surviving long enough to mess up enough times and to have one of those successes.
Who here thinks Notch, like Minecraft, came out of nowhere? Good, thankfully they're known. It took, you know how long Notch
I think I can ask in Russian just to verify.
Yeah, go.
Кто здесь думает, что Майнкрафт был просто внезапным успехом? Okay, a few people.
So Notch was in the industry for what, 15 years?
I think so.
Years?
He was working at King for a while.
He was working at King before he did Minecraft, and he did like a really shitty zombie game right before he did Minecraft. It was really bad.
And then I played the very first Minecraft prototype.
Yeah.
I mean, it was quite bad.
Yeah, no.
The Java.
And it took him like it took him what, a year and a half to.
We do this, don't we? We retroactively take anyone who's had a success
and then start the story
that was
there.
The start of the career. People still, I'm introduced to events as the guy who made Thomas Was Alone. People don't list the 9 games before that, and they shouldn't. It's not relevant in a way, but at the same time, by kind of obscuring those histories, I think it creates this illusion that you just make a hit with your first game. I think you're one of the rare examples of someone who did have a success very early with Super Crate Box. Like how many in was that?
But I've been making games since I was 6.
Yeah.
Like the Super Crate Box happened when I was 21. There's like 15 years of me making shit.
But in terms of like commercial releases, I don't remember many.
It's my 4th commercial release.
Yeah. So that's relatively early still, right? It's good. It's compliment.
I started young. Longevity,
longevity. Yeah.
That word.
Yeah.
Just staying in the industry for a long time. That helps. Right, like being able
up
to
your
do
odds, right? It's like the longer you can stay at the roulette table, the more chance you have.
That is not how gambling works.
I understand gambling and I should go to Las Vegas. Let's go to Las Vegas.
To that point, I've actually seen a lot of people like, traveling through events. Like you keep on seeing the same people over and over again. And then all of a sudden, at some point, some of them become really successful or form groups that become really successful. And this is what I've been seeing over and over again. Like if you stick around long enough, you will eventually land somewhere. It's just that journey to get there that's really tough. And a lot of people come in with the impression from Indie Game the movie. You kill yourself for a couple of years, then you're good.
Well, that movie misrepresents, right? On some level, like all documentaries do, it's telling a story. But like Jonathan Blow ported the Unreal Engine, right? Like he's been around for years and years and years. Yeah. Edmund Macmillan originally did an art pass on Braid and was doing lots of other stuff beforehand.
Edward Macmillan made like 8,000 Flash games before.
He made as many games as JW.
And Phil was at Ubisoft, right? He was doing other stuff as well. So it's like that film in itself like misses out an enormous swathe of history of all of the participants.
Yeah, like I knew them from Newgrounds. Like Edmund Macmillan made my favorite Flash game called Spewer, and that was amazing. Like it's a 2D Flash game where you puke around.
I don't want to make the promise though that if you stick around that it will work out.
Yeah.
Right. Like because that's the thing. Like all of us are sitting here, and like as Mike mentioned, there is always a part of luck involved. Like I don't want to say it's luck because that pisses me off. Whenever somebody says it's luck, that's also not true. Well, here's the thing. The word luck means separate things.
You make your
Luck
own
is
luck.
So
Luck is a useful word.
I get into this argument like on a daily basis. So like, well, two things. One, I think you can up your odds, but I don't think you make your own luck incomplete, because I think there's lots of people who work just as hard as people who have hits, who don't have hits. I don't think it's entirely about effort. The other thing is, when I say luck, I don't mean luck in a kind of a magical sense. I mean luck as a shorthand for, an unpredictable, chaotic universe. Like yes, I'm sure if you could plan every minute choice, you could be successful on that, but luck is a useful shorthand to avoid having to
If
say
you don't try,
chaos.
you're not going to win anyway, right?
Say again, sorry?
If you don't try, you're not going to win.
Oh God,
anyway.
no, yeah.
But
There's
if you
no
do-
easier way to fail than to not bother trying.
But if you do try, you might not win either. Like that's kind of
the odds are against you in all
Yeah,
cases.
whatever you do, the odds are always against you.
So I think the fact that several of us up here failed in other pursuits before succeeding in some version of games is actually a really good example of that. Like I studied music, I knew a lot about it, I'd been playing music, multiple instruments my entire life, much longer than I've been making games, and that did not end up being a success for me, right? Like I'm not on some music panel somewhere talking about how I kept doing it and it worked, because it actually did not work. I now do music as part of my game career, so that's actually great. But so I guess it sort of kind of worked. But the point is, that is still something that I have. Like, I don't mean to say this to discourage anybody from trying to have whatever career they want, because you should try your best to have whatever career you want. But having something that you enjoy that does not have to be 100% your full-time job is also very valuable. Like, I think the fact that music is now a much smaller part of my professional life, but is still something that I have personally, is probably going to allow me to enjoy it for many more years than if I were recording music for a job every single day and getting burned out on it. One of the amazing things now is that it is actually possible to develop games as a hobby pursuit. And if it ends up being something that you can turn into something bigger, all the tools are there and the distribution is there and the possibility is there. And again, I'm not saying this to discourage anybody from trying to pursue games as a full-time career. I'm just saying there are a lot of different ways now to be a game developer and a lot of different scales you can do it at, and success can mean a lot of different things.
How many people in the audience here you think are starting their career as a game developer and will end up being rock stars? Like guitarists in like 10 years.
They could happen, right? Like
This would be an amazing
there'll
story.
be like someone doing an interview with
In like 10 years.
with like a major, like, I guess will music magazines exist? I don't know.
We got like 10 minutes before we move to Q&A. So I'm just gonna ask the audience, like, who here has released a game? Кто здесь выпустил игру? So we got like half of the people here, right?
Wait. Did they mean like release a game or release commercial game?
Кто релизнул игру, которая не free-to-play, которая платная?
Who has released a game that wouldn't be free to play?
All right.
And not commercial?
Некоммерческие игры кто релизил? Ага.
The same people? Nobody here made a game for fun and put it on Newgrounds or something?
Apparently not.
Somebody did.
One guy over there. Yeah, but
Good job.
well, a lot of the industry here came from Flash games. The conference used to be called Flash Gam, right? So the business model there was where you guys started, right?
Yeah, we started with sponsorships.
Yeah,
on
you just make a
board.com
Flash game and then you just sponsor it.
Yep.
And that used to be like the go-to way, right? That was like, it was a formula. You know, you make a Flash game, you get bids on FGL, and that's it. But now the industry is changing so rapidly, so you never really know. But like you said, like this is actually the advice that I give to a lot of teams that come to us. Like they go like, okay, we are stuck in a shitty job. Give us $500,000. We're gonna develop a game for you. And I'm like, yeah, no, because well, first of all, that's an insane amount of money for us. We're a small company, but they don't have something to show yet. They don't have like something super successful. They have not made a game jam game that's played by millions of people. You know, they just want this, you know, like incubator where they're gonna have a safe environment and they're gonna have like the full budget to develop this game. That's not how it works. The advice that I give to people is, okay, well, just start working on it. Like, you know, make 2 shifts, you know, work your main job and then work in the evenings. Because I think most of us have done this, right? Like we had actual jobs we had to go to, and then we come
Thomas
back.
Was alone took 2 years.
Yeah, exactly. And then you have no weekends, then you live on ramen, and then, you know, chicken ramen is really good, and then you succeed.
Duck ramen.
Oh yeah, duck
Chicken
ramen.
is bad.
I don't know, I really like chicken ramen.
Yeah. No, it was bad. It tastes like plastic, dude.
All right,
It's the
so
worst.
if you lose the game lynch tonight, you're going to eat chicken ramen.
Ah, fuck.
All right, so I just want to talk a little bit about one thing that I have noticed with myself very, very recently is, you know how in games like Far Cry, you have these scripted sequences where like you have a lot of NPCs and then you can like come in blazing like stealth style and kill everyone. I found a very odd video in Rust, and the screenshot over there, so I played 58 hours of Rust. I bought last Thursday. So this...
Wait, didn't you also help organize an event?
About what?
This event?
Yeah.
When did you sleep? Never mind.
What is sleep? But point is, I found a video of this guy who, you know, Rust. Rust is a survival game where there's clans and building and whatnot. So this one guy was playing on the server, and then he gets raided by a huge team. Like there's 40 people built a huge base. And then this guy sneaks into the enemy base, and he takes out the whole clan. Like I've never seen anything like that. And even if it's fake, the fact is that it's really amazing to see. So I'm just gonna like fire up a short
Here
video.
he comes. Time for some acupuncture.
So he snuck in,
The earth
he
under
has
his
spears,
feet. Our hunter
and then he just
retreats
starts
to
killing
draw
everyone.
out the enemy. What a shot.
kills that guy,
Crikey,
he
he's
starts
got
losing,
explosives on him. Our hunter now has all the tools he needs.
and he's narrating like, okay, this hunter, you know, he's hunting for his prey.
Another one. They just keep coming and coming.
I think the music is already my favorite thing.
Rookie error. You can't shoot while climbing a ladder. Now he pays for that mistake.
So he does this for like 20 minutes or so,
Covered.
and then eventually he takes out the clan leader by blowing up the tower. And just watching this, like it's not for a presentation style, right? But just watching this made me want to play this. And then, you know, 60 hours later and no sleep and helping organize DevGam, this happened. My point is that as indie developers, we can explore mechanics that allow people to make their own stories. And I'm seeing this more and more, where streamers, for example, when they played Punch Club, they ignored the story, they made their own shit up on the way. And then they were like, okay, I'm gonna make like an agility build for Punch Club, and I'm gonna be like this guy. Then they were making up their own backstories and whatnot. So my question is to you guys, as indies, how can we innovate on the story front and enable people to make their own stories? Yeah, that's just for Chris.
Well, so those are two very different things, right? There's strong story in a game that is authored by the designers, and that's like the game that we made, Firewatch. And then there are strong stories that you enable the player to make, and that's like most of the other games, I guess we're kind of more in the same category, and then most of the rest of the people up here are in the other category. This, I think, connects to actually what you were talking about earlier with reviews. I think that in the case like our game, a game like Firewatch, which has a very strong authored story, reviews were actually very important to us because the game does not sell itself. Like, well, it kind of looks pretty, but I think it's important for people to get out there and say, oh, you will like this, it is good, there's a reason to like this.
I completely disagree with you.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like, so reviews as they are, yeah, they may be important, but just for myself as a gamer, I decided to buy Firewatch the moment I saw it at E3. And
well,
we talked about this last night at 2 a.m.
We cannot assume that most people will do that.
Where we're like, you goddamn tricked us. I was like, I'm gonna walk around the forest, it's gonna be a happy game, and then I'm crying.
Yeah. Well, yeah, so, fuck you, sorry. Anyway, the other thing I was going to say is that with the more your game allows players to tell their own stories, the less you need to rely on reviews and people making judgments about your game, because those things will paint such an amazing picture of your game that is way cooler than anything a reviewer could ever say. I mean, especially now with streaming, with YouTube, with all the ways that people can share their own stories in a game, like that is the best possible marketing tool you could ever have.
And it becomes like that video is not someone trying to promote Rust. It's someone trying to show off themselves and tell their story, and that's much more powerful. That was
by the way, the channel is Fallout for the win. Like, if anyone wants to check it out.
These are not promotional videos, and that's why they work. Is because you're getting people to show off using your game as a platform.
So yes, also no. I'm gonna be that guy. But so Nuclear Throne is a very streamable game. Has barely any story to speak of. Like, we have a lot of story, but the game doesn't really communicate it. It's huge on Twitch, did really well on Twitch. The reason it was big on Twitch is because one guy started streaming it because he read a review.
Oh, right? Yeah, the reviews.
Reviews, do they matter? Yes, absolutely. Any attention to your game matters. But what kind of information matters more to your game is going to depend on the game. But something like Firewatch, it might not be streamed as much, but I'm going to assume you get a shit ton of fan art and stuff like that just spread over the internet. I think I came across 300,000 different images of and the photos in the game get spread around. Any game has its own way of communicating the beauty of that game,
right? That's the thing.
Identity, right?
I think identity, but some way that the game welcomes you talking about it. So be that an amazing story that you can that the game's got in it, it's authored, that you can talk about the amazing story. What?
Do you get fan art for Thomas Was Alone?
I get so much fan art for Thomas Was
Alone.
Oh my
god!
Do you get triangles or what?
Thomas Was Alone really welcomes people, so that people do the human versions of the characters. It's awesome. Some of it's amazing. But I think you have to welcome that. So whether it's making a game that allows players to tell their own story, making a game that tells its own story very well. With Volume, the level editor has been really popular, so we have people sharing their stuff they've made in the game. There has to be some route for people to talk. You have to be able to start a conversation. It doesn't really matter what the conversation's around, just that there is one.
Okay, guys, we need to move on to Q&A. So we have a few minutes for for some questions. So guys, please raise up your hand if you would like to ask a question, and then we'll get you a microphone. Вопросы есть какие-нибудь для...
Any questions for our panelists? I can't see anything. I can't see squat.
Раз.
1-1. Oh ho. Woo. I just wanted to ask why these two guys have been silent all this time.
Why were you guys all quiet? That's the question, I guess. Well, the question is for Dan and Grzegorz.
Because they said everything, so...
Aww. Sorry. So my view on this is that...
Damn it, bro.
Okay, ребята, у вас есть вон вопрос посередине.
Hey guys, do you have a question in the middle of the room?
I think it's because it's different. Rami.
Oh yeah, no, it was me. Yeah, no, absolutely. It wasn't Mike talking most of the time.
Oh, well, first of all, I would like to thank Rami for his talk about pitching games on another conference, naming no names, and I think it's really must-see for every indie developer. So check this out. And my question refers to the. Oh, okay. My question refers to the very beginning of this panel. There was a question about what do I start with, and the answer for tech guys was pretty obvious: just start making games. And what if I'm just a lonely game designer with no friends? What should I start with? And let's not talk about board games, please.
So that's my background. I was a designer. That was my job in industry, was just design. Couldn't write a line of code. I mean, the horrible reality for me was I learned to code. Like, I sat down in Unity, makes that very easy. Blueprints in Unreal makes it very straightforward. There's Game Maker, there's Twine, there's a bunch of tools and platforms you can use that will allow you to make something. The biggest problem you have, and I do have friends in the indie world who are just game designers, and the struggle they have is for every game they want to make, they need to find a programmer and convince that programmer to work with them. And most people who can program have a game they want to make, you know, and so going out there and convincing people, money helps, but that's obviously hard to come by in a lot of situations as well. So my honest suggestion to you would be try and start playing with a tool. Find something you can use to get a design out there, or maybe make board games, card games, things that don't require technical skill but can still get a design out there. And then with that experience and with that stuff that you're showing, you can then get, in my case, I work now with coders because my code was good enough to get me to a certain level, and that got me to a point where I could then start hiring real people who know what they're doing.
Similar here with Cube, actually. All three of us were the original designers, and none of us were coders, and we used Kismet and Blueprint to create the entire game. And we could have, when we got funding, we could have got a coder on board, but we decided to sort of prove a point that we could make a game without a coder. Looking back, yeah, a coder would have been really valuable. So,
Can I be really honest? I don't know where the question was. So you said you're a game designer. So how do you know you're a game designer? You're not a programmer. Like, have you designed games? Do you work with other people? Have you found teams before?
Yeah, I do for like 4 years already. But it's just big commercial projects, and
okay. So in your case, how you became better at design was through working with other people, and that's a completely valid solution to that. But like, becoming a designer is not really a thing. Like, you're always a designer plus something.
That's not true, Rami. I disagree with that.
No, that is. I have never met somebody in the games industry that is purely a designer. It simply does not exist.
You've not been around like bigger development.
You can't communicate. There's no good way to communicate. Then at least you're like a writer or like a very good team manager.
There might be a bigger conversation in this panel, but you're completely wrong.
I have never
in terms of big development. There's loads of people who are purely designers.
So I have never met somebody that is a designer in a team under pure designer in a team under 20.
I've seen a few. I've seen.
We're gonna argue about this some other day.
We will. We'll argue
basically,
another time.
The short version is just a designer is pretty much like, I don't know, how do you become just a designer?
By focusing. I'm going to stand up for you, mate, because your job is incredibly valid and worthwhile and important.
No, but here's the thing. I am not disagreeing that design is important. Design is extremely important. But if you are only and just purely a designer, there's no way for you to communicate what you're onto.
Let's save everyone's time and argue about this in the pub later.
Right, basically, if you want to be a designer, figure out something else that you're also good at. Then through that, find a team, and then through that, figure out a way to communicate your design to other people. Like, your main skill as a designer is communication and getting shit together.
In the indie development scene, from a practical level, Rami is correct.
If you are going to work for Ubisoft, maybe that's a different discussion. This is like indie survival panel, so let's keep it at indie. If you're an independent developer, I don't think there's a job that is purely a designer.
Okay, there are people who do that.
I really want to know who.
Well, maybe you can draw, but you just might don't want to.
Figure out, like, I agree with Mike. Figure out how to program in general.
The best designers I've ever worked with are
everything
coders.
else is bullshit, but like the
my
programming
God, you
part
just
is
can't
really
shut them
what's
up,
true.
can you?
Can we just fight? Is that a thing? Can we
No,
wrestle?
that's gonna be the game launch.
Oh, okay.
So part of the game launch is we're actually gonna Mike is gonna be running here and we're gonna be shooting him with Nerf guns.
This got way
better. That is actually happening. All right, we're out of time.
Can we do one?
Thank you so much.
I feel really bad about talking about last question.
We're going to continue arguing in the main hall, and feel free to join the arguments. Thank you all.